I'm Keith Burton with Golden Harrison Inside Edge, and I'm going to now lead us through the part that you've been waiting for, which is our recognition of all of our honorees for this year. I want to also thank you for being here with us both this afternoon, for those who are with us for the research and the summit, as well as this evening. It's my pleasure to start with our words, if you follow in the program that you have. And by the way, for those who haven't seen it in the past, this is the Compass Award that all of our recipients receive as a part of the recognition. Steve Harris is our first honoree tonight for his work on the legacy front. And if you read in the program, you'll know that Steve spent more than 40 years in automotive communication. He is renowned for his work in mentoring. In fact, you'll hear shortly from Tony CERVONE, who I'll ask to come up, about that work. I had the pleasure recently, though, of reading Ron Culp's blog. I don't know how many of you follow Culprit. It's one of the best blogs, I think, in our business. And he, in 2009, had asked Steve to contribute toward this blog. I don't know if Steve recalls this or not. And he did. And he said in this, at the time, quote, "I aspired to own a weekly newspaper, but at the request of R.T. Kingman, who was legendary as a PR manager, regional PR manager at GM, he said, I interviewed for the job with GM Public Relations, performing junior and senior high school assembly programs across the country in an attempt to interest students in science careers. And at that time, he wrote, 42 years later, I'm still waiting to buy that weekly newspaper. And all but, as he said, 2 of those 42 years were spent in the business. Steve wrote at that time, I never had a plan. I always sought to work for, with, and hire the very best people I could. One of those people is Tony CERVONE, who I've had the pleasure, as with Steve, in knowing for many, many years, including his period at Chrysler. And when I talked with Tony about Steve, he said, I can't tell you that I've ever worked with anyone who provided the mentoring and the guidance that Steve Harris did for me and so many other people that we serve with in this business. And I'm really honored to be here tonight to recognize Steve. So with that, please join me in welcoming Tony CERVONE, who will then recognize Steve Harris.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to be first. Keith stealing most of the thunder there on what I was going to say about Steve. Not really, actually. Actually, when Steve called me to ask me if I could introduce him, he said, well, I'm not really sure why anybody would want to honor me for something like this. And but if it's going to happen, I'd really appreciate it if you could do it. But I understand how busy you are, so if it's a problem, don't worry about it. I'll find somebody else to do it, et cetera, et cetera. And really, that's typical Steve. Humble, unassuming, deferential. And if you read the bio in the program that we have, really, he's got every reason not to be any of those things. He's had a phenomenal career. But in a very large way, that's really what I believe is Steve's secret. I was recently asked at a icebreaker. I was at an off-site meeting where they have these icebreakers when you start, and they said, you know, who's the most influential male in your life? You couldn't pick your father. And there was absolutely no hesitation in my voice. I said, Steve Harris, of course. Steve taught every single day he worked. Never in a demeaning way, always in an extremely constructive way. But he mentored in everything he did. He led by his actions. He relaxed you. He made you want to do more. He made you comfortable taking risk. And he always had your back. You know, Steve is a lot like those rare athletes that just do it. They just live it, and they don't have to say a lot. They don't cheerlead, they don't do it. It's kind of like Michael Jordan or Walter Payton, for those of you here in Chicago. Maybe Detroit people would say Steve Yzerman or somebody like that. But there's a time when you actually do need to talk. And those athletes always knew when that time was. And Steve was exactly like that. I can remember when we were at Chrysler, and Bob Eaton was going to be named the successor for Lee Iacocca. And the conventional wisdom was that the guy who didn't get the job wouldn't show up to the press conference and probably would find a nice, easy way to exit the company. But Steve spoke up and said, no, you, Bob Lutz, need to be at this press conference. And I am absolutely convinced that while Steve was arguing for that, against, at that time in his career, people much higher level saying, no, we don't think we should do that. I'm absolutely convinced, though, had Bob not gone to that press conference, Chrysler would have been a very different company in those glory years in the mid-90s before it merged with Daimler. And Steve had a huge piece to do with that. But it was not just those kinds of situations that Steve took risk. It was in everyday situations. I also remember when we would, at Chrysler, brainstorm for auto show ideas, and one of the big things that we always wanted to do is be extraordinarily creative. And Steve inevitably would start the conversation with, this is probably a dumb idea, but, and then he'd lay out this great idea that he knew if we had to settle with that, it would have been just fine. Press conference, whatever the event was, would have been just fine. But he actually believed, and the way he did it was he allowed you to challenge that idea to come up with another idea and another idea, because he believed that in doing so, by giving that permission, better ideas would come up. And he always said that great ideas can come from anywhere. And he really believed it, and he coached it, and he encouraged it. For me personally, Steve molded me into the communicator that I am today. He showed me how to work with media and gently corrected me when I'd screw it up somehow, and I often did that. Sometimes not so gently, but most of the time very gently. And he'd give me the attaboy when he knew intuitively that I really needed it. And we laughed. We had fun. And no matter how dire the situation, we always found it fun, and we smiled at work. More importantly, or most importantly, Steve gave me the confidence to manage people, to offer guidance without being domineering, to try to be a real leader. And I often say, and I mean this sincerely, I want to be half the leader that Steve is. And if I get there, I'll be better than most. Steve always gave credit, took blame. He has that rare quality that makes you want to do better, and when you didn't, you felt like you let him down. And when he gets praised for things that he's done in his career, and he gets a fair amount of that now, deservedly so, he always says, as Keith pointed out, well, I just hired the right people. Baloney. We became better by working along with Steve and working for Steve. He didn't fill the workforce with Mensa communications candidates that knew every answer to every situation. In fact, if Steve were honest, he'd tell you that he would prefer to hire somebody with a better attitude than somebody who had the requisite experience that might be on a piece of paper any day of the week. Because he believed that when you brought people together, the goodness in people and the capability within those people was there. And he knew the chemistry within the team was important to getting the best out of people. So is it any wonder that his numerous proteges include the top communications leaders at GM, Ford, Chrysler, Nissan, BMW, VW, Audi, Hyundai, United Airlines, Pepsi, L'Oreal, the Kellogg Foundation, numerous agency lead positions, and I'm leaving out a ton. Steve, you had a profound impact on many, many people. And I'll end by saying this. Thank you, Steve. Thank you from the thousands of people who have worked for you over the years. You taught us, you molded us, indeed you mentored us. And thank you for me personally. I wouldn't be where I am today without your guidance as a communicator, as a leader, as a person. So congratulations on this honor. You deserve it more than you'll ever know. Welcome, Steve Harris. Okay, everybody else take notes.
Thank you very much, Tony. I really appreciate you being here and for those very, very kind and overwhelming remarks. Tony touched on something that I was going to mention as well. I don't think there was ever a time in the 20 plus years that Tony and I got to work together at Chrysler and Daimler Chrysler, the marriage made in heaven, and GM on 2 different occasions that we didn't learn from each other. So to me, that's really what mentoring is supposed to be all about, is you need to be continuously mentored yourself, and as you're mentoring somebody else, you should be learning from them. And I learned a ton from Tony, and most importantly, he took the words out of my mouth. We laughed every day. We just had a great time while we were doing it. Even in the worst of times, we could find something to laugh about and to move on. I certainly want to thank the Planck Center and the Board of Trustees for this honor and for including me in such great company. So many of the group tonight are friends that I've known over a long period of time, Nick and John and Marge, and I'm glad to also be in the company of Dr. Toth and Shane. But it's just really an honor to be just included with some of those other names. I really mean that. And while I never really got to work with Betsy Planck, I was around Betsy towards the end of her career, and I saw the way that people revered her and respected her and had such great affection. So that adds a lot also to what the meaningfulness of this award for me. I had the opportunity to work with some legendary people in the automotive communications, and this may be my only chance to say thanks to them because I've never had the opportunity before. The names won't mean much to many of you, but they were special and very giving people to me. Tony DiLorenzo and Jim Tolley at General Motors. Jim was also at Chrysler and American Motors with me. R.T. Kingman, who Nick mentioned early on. Jerry Sloan at American Motors. Baron Bates and Bud Liebler at Chrysler, who Tony and I both worked with. These were great people who I learned a ton from, and they were just very kind and very giving to me. Of course, about 38 years ago, I picked up a volunteer mentor, my wife, Roddy, who's here tonight, and she has taken me on as a special project for my personal mentoring. Again, I just want to thank the Planck Center for this award. It really means a great deal to me. I've been blessed to work with outstanding communications people, and I hope to get the opportunity to do that for several years to come. Thanks very much.
If you've had the pleasure to serve with Margery KRAUS, you know what a great leader she is, and I've had that pleasure as a part of the Institute for Public Relations. Margery's founder and chief executive officer of APCO Worldwide in Washington, D.C. Those of you may know that Margery, like Steve, has been honored with the Arthur Page Society's Hall of Fame Award, and I was with her 2 years ago when the Institute for Public Relations recognized her with the Alexander Hamilton Medal for Lifetime Achievement. If you look at her background, you'll see that Margery has really been recognized throughout her career for great leadership. It's a part of who she is, and a part of what the people who are here with her tonight, who work with her in her company, know about her and about APCO around the world. I will say one thing, though, that is written in the program that I think is important before I introduce her presenter. Margery understands the importance of mentoring as it's written here. As she told the Diplomatic Courier, mentors will, quote, help you think through the problems and insecurities that you have to get to the next stage. It's an important guidance. And when we've been with Margery at different times in different settings, she listens well and always follows that rule. So I'm grateful tonight to be here with her, but also to introduce a special presenter, who is Mara Hedgecoth, who is not only her colleague, but also her daughter. And I think one of the things that Margery said to me earlier tonight that I'll share with you is, I'm not sure what Mara may say about me tonight. But I had a chance to talk with Mara, and I think that she'll be very pleased with what she may say. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mara Hedgecoth.
Thank you. Tonight I have the honor of introducing an extraordinary woman who has had an amazing impact on countless people, the profession, and me personally. She is a mentor to many, and I should know I've seen it firsthand for my nearly 40 years of life. Margery KRAUS is not just an inspirational leader, visionary CEO, and communications practitioner. As you just learned, she's also my mom, and an amazing one at that. I've been witness to the countless number of people she has influenced throughout the years. She began her career as a 12th grade civics teacher, mentoring students at an influential stage of their lives. When I was in grade school, we often adopted our friends who needed advice, who needed a stable place to live and a guiding hand to get back on track, or who graduated from college and were finding their way in a new career or just needed some life counsel. She spent more than a decade leading the Close-Up Foundation, a nonprofit, nonpartisan citizenship education organization that promotes responsible and informed participation in the democratic process, where she brought thousands upon thousands of high school students to Washington, D.C. to learn firsthand about government and politics. And as you can imagine, that would take a lot of patience. She is still a member of the Close-Up Board of Directors today, and nearly 750,000 participants have gone through, been inspired by, and empowered by the program. It still amazes me how many people I run into who say that they've been through the program and it shaped the career path that they followed, who they are as professionals today, and how profoundly they were influenced by that experience. And they attribute that to Margery's vision and commitment to the Close-Up program. She still continued to set her targets on uncharted territory, and she decided to accept a challenge to start up a consulting business with the law firm of Arnold & Porter. At a time when it wasn't easy to be a woman leading a business, she took on that challenge. She's taken that firm, APCO Worldwide, and has grown it into the second largest independent firm in our industry, providing countless opportunities and inspiration to our more than 600 employees in more than 32 offices, mentoring them to build successful careers and helping counsel numerous individuals in our profession. I get to see firsthand how many people she influences and inspires on a daily basis with her unwavering commitment to every employee, client, and industry friend. Her work ethic is second to none, and her authentic, caring nature about those around her, the communities where APCO operates, and doing the right thing for our profession are exemplary. However, the most impressive and important influence she's instilled in me personally is that even with her selflessness to the profession, our company, everyone who works with her, and her friends, she always made time for family and put family first. With the demanding schedule of a global CEO, she did not miss the birth of a single grandchild, all 9 of them, and made sure she was at every milestone event for her children, grandchildren, and step-grandson. If she said she would be there, she was there, no matter what came up, cheering the loudest at my softball games, giving hugs and kisses at her grandchildren's birthday parties, and by the way, taking a 6 a.m. flight back to Baltimore tomorrow morning so she doesn't miss Grandparents' Day for my 3-year-old and 4-year-old, which is taking place tomorrow at their school. Helping us when our spouses had surgery, or in the case of my brother recovering from cancer, and the list goes on. She really showed me what a life of purpose could look like, and that even as a woman and a mom, I could have a professional career and still be equally successful at home raising my own family. This is just a small glimpse into an amazing woman who has friends all over the world, an internationally renowned reputation, and is also, most importantly, as a mom and a grandma, and she loves us unconditionally. So, that's the end too. Tonight I couldn't be more proud to introduce Margery KRAUS as this year's recipient for the Milestone and Mentoring Award for the Agency category. I'm gonna take it out. I think so. Hold it up.
Well, I don't know how you follow that. It's hardly recognizable to me, but you know, there's a lot of things in life to be thankful for, and I think at this moment in time when we all have seen so much suffering, I'm reminded every day of how lucky I am not just to be standing here and recognized by your friends and your colleagues, but to have the benefit of such a supporting family. And you know, Mara's the youngest of my 3 children. 2 of them are at APCO. And if anybody ever wonders why the company's been a success, I think you just found the reason. I get much too much credit for this, and I think that one of the highest honors for me, Mara, is being your mother. So thank you very much. I just wanted to say a few words. First of all, I wanted to thank the Planck Center, whose mission I think is so important to all of us. And while I never knew Betsy Planck, I think that we probably shared not only a passion for the profession, but I think that her pioneering spirit is something that we all aspire to. And standing here as a woman, I take great pride in having this award in the name of the Planck Center, because I think that you know, being recognized in her honor is a very big honor for me and probably all the other women who follow in these footsteps. And earlier in the day, we were talking about this gap between men and women, this bridge, about how we think about things. But I think that it's probably a much smaller gap than people think. It's covered a lot by hard work and dedication, and I think people like Betsy Planck kind of led the way on that. She once famously said that public relations is fundamental to a democratic society where people make decisions every day in the workplace, the marketplace, the community, the voting booth. Its primary mission is to forge responsible relationships of understanding, trust, respect among groups and individuals. And as you heard, my start in my professional life was as a 12th grade civics teacher. So I take this mission of responsible citizenship it's very important to me, and it's one that I've tried to not only live by, but teach by. And you know, I started my career as a teacher, and I feel honored to be here tonight, getting this award, being kind of recognized as a teacher and a mentor. So I thank you all very much, you know, for that. And so I just wanted to express that. And I know you're going to hear this over and over from all of us, but you know, this is a very close profession, and I have learned so much from the people being honored tonight. And I think the biggest privilege really is to be among this company of people. And I'm relatively new to the profession, I think, compared to some of the other people who are here. Having, you know, I didn't start in an agency, and I never even knew what an agency was till I tried to build one. So I was really naive about all of this. It's just kind of a glorious accident. But I think that, you know, the closer you get to people who have this kind of quality about them, you know, as you saw with Steve and, you know, Nick, and certainly with John and everybody else who'll be up here, you know, I feel really privileged to be in that company. So thank you all very much, and thank you, Mara. So I guess we'll go home together.
We talked at some length today a little bit about the new millennial population and people who are coming through our profession and reverse mentoring. And I think to Margery's point, we learned so much from the new men and women who really are a part of our profession, who are coming up. And I'm very pleased in this next category of young professional to talk about Ryan McShane for just a moment. You know, we've learned one thing today in the digital age: whatever you write, you have forever, don't you? And so Ryan actually, at the time that he was finishing up in college, developed a blog, and in it, as he was talking about his work as he joined Taylor, he said, "I define my life on finding happiness in things that I pursue. My life goal is inclusive to all things professional, personal, and even the little things that mean so much." Even the little things that mean so much. As you'll read in our tonight in our program, Ryan is an up-and-coming leader who uses this Shoes Off Barefoot blog to really help other young people. And when Kevin Sagi, who's a part of our board of trustees, and others talked about the best young leader we could select, it was Ryan who was that leader. And as I talked to John Lippris, who's one of the principals of Taylor, he echoed that as well. I'm very pleased tonight to ask TARYN Parker, who is Ryan's colleague, to join us to present Ryan with the award as our young professional. TARYN?
Long before I had ever even spoken to Ryan McShane, I knew exactly who he was. I remember on more than one occasion being encouraged by my fellow PR students to read his blog, Footprints, and to follow him on Twitter. He always had such great insight on how students and recent grads could break into the industry and, more importantly, how to succeed once we got there. During my senior year, my PRSSA chapter won the bid to become the editors of Forum, the national PRSSA newspaper. Imagine my excitement when I was asked to edit Ryan's Footprints article one afternoon. This is also the perfect segue to reach out to Ryan about his position at Taylor and any advice he had for applying to their internship program. He responded right away, I remember, and kept in touch over the next 2 months, helping to set up my interviews and making sure I had all the information I needed. He was the first smiling face that I met when I moved to Charlotte for the internship and made sure that my transition from student to intern was seamless. It was clear to me that he had a lot on his plate, as he's a very valued member of the firm, yet he always made time to meet with me, often providing me with the advice that I swear to this day helped me to land my full-time position with Taylor in Chicago. I'm not the only Ryan McShane fan out there, and he has brought several interns in from other PRSSA chapters, mentoring them and guiding them through their first month at Taylor. A few of them have even become full-time employees. But Ryan's impact extends much further than the walls of Taylor. Thanks to Ryan's encouragement, I'm involved with the PRSA and Young Professionals Network organizations here in Chicago. You would not believe how many times the response I get at networking events when I say that I work for Taylor are along the lines of, "Is that the firm where Ryan McShane works? Oh my gosh, I met him at National Conference once." Believe it or not, one young student recently asked if I had ever actually gotten to talk to Ryan McShane at work before. His popularity does not come as a huge surprise, though, as I know Ryan often stays late at night to finish reviewing resumes of students that have reached out to him for help. It is hard to find such a dedicated mentor, let alone one whose reach expands out so far to so many different students and young professionals. For those of you who have had the privilege of getting to know Ryan, I'm sure you would all agree he's the definition of selfless. With all that he has going on in his career and his personal life, he has made a commitment to mentorship and continues to be an important role model and leader in the public relations field. Many of my fellow coworkers were unaware that Ryan had been nominated and won this award at first, and that's a direct result of his modesty and humble approach to the incredible work he does both inside and outside of the office. I'm just one of the many young PR professionals who have been greatly impacted by Ryan McShane, and I'm sure I will not be the last. Tonight, I would personally like to thank Ryan for the mentorship he has provided me with over the past year and a half and congratulate him on this very well-deserved honor.
Wow, that meant a lot. Thank you, TARYN. I'm very proud to call TARYN Parker my colleague, and it's been a privilege to be able to mentor her and others. I think you really appreciate and recognize the people that you mentor, their growth, and I've definitely seen that through TARYN the past year and a half she's been with our firm. For me personally, I would not be up here tonight if it wasn't for the mentors in my life, so I wanted to spend my time up here thanking those. And honestly, that begins with my college career when I was a student and PRSSA member. Students like Kevin, I wouldn't have run for the national committee if it wasn't for people like him, and I really owe it to a lot of my PRSSA colleagues. They just instilled in me the confidence to be able to go out and do it, whatever that was. Being a PRSSA National Committee member, it opened a lot of doors for me. It allowed me to network with all the major agencies out there, and I think I found a perfect fit at Taylor. I've been at Taylor Charlotte now for 4.5 years, and there's a reason I've stayed there, and it's the people. In addition to TARYN, I've got two of my colleagues here tonight, Mark Riggs, who's the Senior Vice President, and Justin Nicoletti, who's the Vice President with my company. Since day one, kid you not, they've kept me under their wing. They've provided me opportunities to grow. They challenge me every single day, and they've invested in me. And guys, thank you so much for that. I've got my beautiful fiance, Allison, here tonight. Thank you, Allison. You've taught me, if anything, to be just as passionate about my home life as I am my professional life. And just as important, to always clean the lint trap out of the dryer before switching out that load. Guilty. Yeah. And then my final thank yous have to go out to the Plank Center for this opportunity to be here tonight. I've had a wonderful time. The other award recipients for setting the bar in the industry, you guys have done a tremendous job, and I do look up to you and aspire to be one of you one day. And finally, to the late Betsy Plank, who I did have the opportunity to meet and interview back in 2007 for a PRSA Tactics interview article. And being a part of this award means so much to me, because it means that I'm fortunate enough to be a part of her legacy. So that means quite a bit to me. Thank you all very much.
I hope you enjoyed the setting of the Union League Club tonight. For those of you who don't know, Bill Heyman knows this. Please. Betsy Plank was a member of this club for many years. And in fact, probably one of the last times that Ron Culp and I spent with her was over in this corner, where we had lunch with her in this room. This was her favorite room in the club, and she played a very strong leadership role in this club for many, many years. I'm really pleased to present this next honor, the Bruce Berger Educator Award, for two reasons. One, it honors by name Bruce Berger, who has been a longtime colleague and friend for me as a part of the work that I've done, and that we have named this recognition in his honor is something very important to me, but also because of tonight's recipient, Dr. Elizabeth Toth, or Liz Toth, who many of you know. A little background on Liz. She's taught at a number of great institutions. She was at SMU, and unfortunately I wasn't there when she was there, and I missed that part of it, as well as Southern Illinois and Syracuse, where she was a part of that great program, as well as in her current role as the professor and chair at the University of Maryland, where she's led that program. She has either co-edited or led the publication of many, many different texts, over 100 scholarly articles. You'll see her leadership in so many different areas as you follow her background. But most important is the work that she's done in mentoring, which I think Betsy would talk about tonight. Mentoring educators and students, including advising on 18 master's theses and 9 doctoral dissertations, and ensuring that public relation remains one of the highest regarded fields in the community. It is with great educators that we continue to advance the field and Dr. Elizabeth Toth is one of those people. And I'm very pleased that tonight to honor her and to present her is our trustee and colleague, Maria Russell of Syracuse University. Please join me in welcoming Maria.
Thank you, Keith, and good evening. Indeed, it's an honor and pleasure to be a member of the original Board of Advisors that Betsy Ann Plank brought together and to watch the incredible growth of excellent programming created at the Plank Center in a very few short years by the Alabama faculty, staff, and volunteer leaders. Today's summit is one of those remarkable efforts, as is this annual tribute dinner. And again, I'm honored and pleased to be able to introduce and welcome my dear friend, Elizabeth Toth, on her well-deserved award. When I told someone I had to confine my remarks to 3 minutes, the friend sympathized and said, I could write a book about Elizabeth and it would be all good. I myself could spend the entire 3 minutes telling you how Elizabeth has been my mentor for more than 25 years, from the time I transitioned from the practice of public relations into teaching. But then I'd have to tell you how I miss having her with me at Newhouse, leaving us for Maryland, and how I still type emails, eltoth@syr.edu, and then I wonder why they bounce back. 8 years later, I still resent Maryland. But then it shouldn't be all about me. So I interviewed a number of her former and current students who also wanted to write a book about Elizabeth. In their recollections and heartfelt notes, we can find the textbook characteristics of a mentor. And interestingly enough, for those of you who were there today, they reflect the soft skills we discussed this afternoon. Words like this: her door is always open. Being a professor, a department chair, and serving on so many committees, both on campus and on the national level, she is very busy. But when she meets with me, I know I always have her full attention. She guides with respect and without micromanaging. When I am lost, she offers several options, then lets me choose. When I have a hard time making decisions, she provides feedback and asks constructive questions. She has great candy in her office. Dr. Toth engages her students in her own research, giving us amazing opportunities to publish with her. Throughout every storm, she has been dedicated to my success, has helped me maintain perspective and move forward. I love her sense of fashion, the scarves, the coats, the dresses. Now, lest anyone think that all of her skills are in the soft category, she holds her students to the highest academic standards. In fact, a working professional in our executive master's program dubbed Elizabeth, "She who must be obeyed." And I think we still have those t-shirts somewhere at Newhouse. He has since gone into education himself. Perhaps the best student quote of all is this: "She made me believe that one day I too can be a mentor to my students. She has shown me the skills necessary for that role." For all of us who have benefited from Elizabeth's mentoring, it's great to know she's only an email away. Congratulations.
Thank you, Maria, so much. And believe me, I miss having my office next to you as well. And again, thank you very much to the Planck Center Board of Trustees for this incredible honor. I am deeply appreciative. I'd just like to thank a couple of people. One of them is my husband, Rich Toth. Rich started his journey with me at the same time I started my academic journey as an assistant professor at Southern Illinois University. I was, of course, the PRSSA chapter advisor and chair of the sequence. And so I called the St. Louis chapter PRSA president and said, I'd like to come up and meet you because there are several things I want you to do for my PRSSA chapter. And he did them all. So this was somewhat impressive to me. We actually laugh about PR bringing us together, and certainly for the last 29 years, that has been the case. But somebody who has also been in my life that I want to thank is Betsy Planck, because Betsy's always been there for me too. And I had no idea how our lives would be interwoven during my 32-year academic career. Whenever I called, Betsy came, whether it be Southern Illinois University or Southern Methodist University or Syracuse University. She would just come and speak to my PRSSA chapter. I was very fortunate to serve with her on 2 commissions on public relations education. Betsy really was the impetus behind the commissions. She felt it was critical that we establish standards for what undergraduate public relations education should be. And she made it clear that we had to meet every 5 years to publish and upgrade or update those standards and to promote them nationally. We've spent many an evening together in the hallways of PRSA national conferences. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to her lovely apartment on the north side of Chicago. There wasn't anything that I couldn't ask Betsy to do that she would do for public relations education, and particularly our public relations students. So it's a real honor. It's a very deep honor to be associated with the Planck Center and certainly to accept this award. And of course, I love having it. Also, the Bruce Berger Award, a wonderful colleague. So thank you very much.
As an advisory board, every year we meet in advance of this dinner, long in advance actually, to consider potential honorees for this evening. And when we got into the conversation, as we did around each of these, with ideas and recommendations from our profession around the corporate award, Nick ASHOOH's name came up, and there was no question, as Bill Heyman and Ron Culp and others, as we discussed Nick, the role that he has played. He has a storied background as a corporate communicator, but I think as important would be the recognition that others have for his work as a mentor. He leads the corporate affairs team at Alcoa, and in addition to mentoring those in the public relations profession, he participates in the American Corporate Partners Program, which connects business professionals with veterans, a very important part of our work. Nick's protege, as a part of this, described him as a fantastic mentor who arranged networking opportunities for him in finance, healthcare, and journalism. I think everyone in this room knows today the number of calls we get from young men and women who are looking for mentors, and Nick is one of those people. So it's a pleasure tonight to ask TERESA McWAIN of the American Electric Power Organization, who will present Nick, to join me here on the podium to present him. TERESA.
Thank you, Keith, and good evening. We all know that first impressions are lasting, and early experiences are as well. So I'll share a couple of early experiences I had with Nick ASHOOH that still make me smile. When Nick first arrived at American Electric Power, he had arranged for lunch in our executive dining room with all of his direct reports. And this was an opportunity for us to get to know Nick better and for Nick to get to know us. Nick was dressed in a dark, very dark business suit, much like he is tonight, and in a very white shirt, starched. And before he gave us insights into his experience and his management style, he first taught us something that I have never forgotten. He said, "Let me tell you how to pronounce my name. It is ASHOOH. It is pronounced like, and it rhymes with cashew." And I never forgot that. And so, Nick, I can't tell you how many times I have repeated that line to others so that they would pronounce your name correctly. Also during that lunch, he promised us that we would never see him dressed business casual. Well, Nick was at the company about 7 years, and I'll just say when he left, he had an entirely new wardrobe. Nick brought big ideas to AEP, and he was a refreshing addition to our company. He brought a vision to really reposition and freshen up the brand, and to really make AEP stand out among energy players. What I remember most was his mentorship of me as he secured a sponsorship with Cirque du Soleil. AEP sponsored the North American tours, and it became the centerpiece of a national advertising campaign. And still today, many years later, in fact, almost a decade later, I still get questions and positive feedback about that campaign. So thank you, Nick, for letting me play such a major role in it with you. When I reflect on Nick's leadership style, it's easy to speak about him. I respect most 4 leadership traits that Nick, I believe, exudes. He never patronizes his associates. He treats everyone with respect, managing up, down, and across the same way, always. Nick doesn't micromanage. He presumes his staff knows how to do what they're there to do. And we all know that Nick is always cool, calm, and collected under pressure. And most important, he listens and he leads. Today, Nick continues to be my mentor. He's there for professional advice, and he gives pretty good child-rearing insights as well. I'm proud to call him mentor and friend, and I am delighted to present this award tonight to Nick ASHOOH.
Teresa, thanks very much. It is true I had a great breakthrough at AEP. I bought my first blue shirt while I was there. Thank you, Teresa, very much. You made me look good. You still do. Thanks to the Planck Center, a wonderful organization, and named to carry on the legacy of a wonderful person. I did have the opportunity, the good fortune to meet Betsy, a remarkable person. I'm very pleased to get this honor because mentoring is important to me. I'm here because many people mentored me during my career, And I didn't even realize they were mentoring me at the time. There are names I can mention and will. Some many may not know, but they're very important people to me in my life. One was the late Dallas Hammerlink, who was an early boss of mine. John Edwards, who was my boss at Public Service in New Hampshire. One of my former professors at Marquette, Bob Ashmore. And Marquette's well represented here tonight. Lori Bergen, Dean Bergen is here. Good to see you. And Joyce Hergenhan, who many of you may have known from GE. Gershon Kext, Kext and Company, early on in my career, had a very big impact. Harold Burson, Dan Edelman, these are people who were very, very kind to me when I was just getting started. How wonderful it is to see Jack Coton here tonight. Just terrific, Jack, to see you. And other, thank you. And other real legends, Al Golan, Bruce Harrison is here. I'm sure I'm going to miss people, but all very wonderful people, pioneers in the business, very, very kind to me, and made a huge difference to me in my life, and still do. I'll repeat what others have said. Margery and Steve before me. What an honor to be honored with you, John Iwata. I haven't met Ryan yet, but hope to. Elizabeth, I think we first met when we were both in Syracuse. I'm sorry that a present colleague of mine today, Libby Archell, was not able to join us. I escaped from the coast of Connecticut this morning. Wasn't really sure I was going to get here. Got the last seat on a plane coming to Chicago. Was glad to make it. My colleague Libby thought she was going to go to a safer place when she left her place in Lower Manhattan and went to Hoboken. And you may have heard Hoboken was one of the worst hit places, and she literally couldn't get out of her building, I think until yesterday, so she wasn't able to join us. I do have another current colleague with me from Alcoa, Anthony Ash is here, so glad that you could join us as well. And many, many other good friends. It's just, it's a wonderful thing, although I feel a little bit guilty, like I shouldn't be here because, it's sort of like a bunch of kind people have given me $10 million and I'm being honored for being a wealthy man. It's like things have been given to me which have contributed to my success. And mentoring is something that I get so much out of. So to me, it's almost selfish, that I do it because I enjoy it so much and I get so much out of it. And I think I think other people taught me about it, and I think that's why it's so important to me. So anyway, enough blabbering. Let me thank you all again. And it's wonderful. If you know me, people who know me know that I'm happiest when I'm with a bunch of friends and my family. And of course, my wife Brenda couldn't be here. I put her on a plane this morning to Atlanta because we don't have power in our house, and we probably won't for a long time. But Bill Heyman knows that Brenda puts up with a lot with me, and 35 years we've been married, and she's been a great support, and as has my family as well. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to the Planck Center. It's a great honor. Teresa, again, thank you, and congratulations to everybody else. Thanks.
For those who were with us earlier today, you know that in the afternoon we had a presentation of the Planck Center leadership as a part of our summit around research. And it was really a very exciting afternoon to go through this research, which Dr. Bruce Berger and 28 researchers around the world have led on the topic of leadership in our profession. And I want to recognize, while we're here this evening, two groups that have been so essential to that. One is our colleague Bill Heyman and Heyman Associates. Bill was not with us earlier today because of his travels in from New York, but Heyman Associates in the very beginning, along with Dr. Berger, was at the forefront really in helping to commission this work, and I want to recognize Bill and his team for that. But as we move into the executive recognition this evening with John Iwata, I also want to thank John and the IBM team for the work that they played and the support that they provided around this cutting-edge research. So join with me, if you would, in recognizing these two groups for our research work. What can you say about John Awada? Now, there's so much that we can say, and in fact, in our program tonight, it reads, he's been described as a man whose name invariably comes up when you ask knowledgeable professionals to name the smartest, most forward-thinking people in our business. John has been with IBM since 1984, and what I know most about John is what I experience with him when I see him or I hear him, as many of you do. The authentic enterprise, the work that's been done around corporate character, listening and real thought leadership, and frankly, preparing men and women, not only in his company, but in our profession to lead, have been at the heart of what he does. He chairs the Arthur Page Society and has been at the heart of so much work that Page has done, but he really encourages all of us really to step back and to do what Dr. Berger encouraged today, which is to reflect and really contribute to the work we do, and that includes in the area of mentoring. I'm really pleased to be here with this group and also to recognize one of my colleagues as a trustee of the Planck Center, Mark Harris, who leads communication and the business services group for IBM, who will join me tonight here to present our recognition to the Executive Recognition of the Year for John Awada, Mark Harris.
Thanks, buddy. So it's an honor for me to introduce John Awada to you. It's like, introducing a man who in a room like this obviously requires no introduction. But they told me I had a few minutes, so I'm going to use them. Let me start by telling you a quick story. And this is not unlike what the young woman said about Ryan earlier, but this has happened to me many times, and I'm sure that my friends from IBM and VSA have had similar experiences. But you're being introduced to someone, and the person making the introduction says something like, and Mark works at IBM Communications. And the person you're meeting, very often the first words they say to you are, "Do you know John Awada?" And they say it in that way that's like, I'm just meeting this guy, but if he does know John Awada, I'm going to have to take him a lot more seriously. So we at IBM talk about standards, and if there's one thing I want you to hear about what I say about John tonight, it's that he didn't impose a standard. He just established a standard for the way we work. And when I talk to people about John, over the years, what I find myself saying is he's not just the head of marketing and communications and corporate citizenship at IBM. He actually operates more like the head of strategy for the company. And as of this year, that actually has the benefit of being true, because our new CEO named John to head her strategy committee on behalf of our company. And let me give you an example of why that's right. And now it's kind of hard to, if you think back, there is a time when everything that mattered in the world was not described as smart. Smart cars, smart phones, smart faucets, smart everything, right? But the thing that we now recognize as the rise of a smarter planet, that did not come from a strategy committee or an agency brief or a blue ribbon commission. That started with a couple of emails, John and some of his close collaborators, articulating a point of view about how the infrastructures of the world could be improved and prepared for the 21st century. And today, Smarter Planet is not an advertising tagline, it's not a marketing campaign. It is the strategy of one of the most valuable brands in the world. But tonight we're talking about mentorship. And what I want to convey is, among all the awards that John has received and will receive, why he is especially deserving of this particular honor, and what he's meant to me and hundreds and maybe even thousands of my colleagues at IBM. And when you get to numbers like that, That's mentorship at scale. And that's good because if you know John at all, you know he pretty much doesn't care about anything that can't be done at scale in the first place. So we value scale. It's appropriate for a company that does business in 170 countries with a workforce of 450,000 people. So in my mind, mentoring happens in very personal one-on-one coaching type relationships. But mentoring at scale is about standards, expectations, values. It's about, leading by a personal example and then making it really clear to every person in his organization, what kind of work we ought to be doing, what our expectations are of ourselves, and the contribution that we should make to the enterprise. So when we talk about standards in our function, it is not like we have standards. Man, I'm telling you, we have standards. And the standards were, as I said, not imposed. They were just established by John for the kind of work that we ought to do and the expectations that we have of ourselves. So let me close with one final story. Some time ago, I was at a meeting, and it was outside IBM. And I was new to the group, and I asked a guy I trusted there, am I talking too much in these things? And he said, not. It's good for them to see how you were raised. And he was not talking about the job that Ma and Pa Harris did back in Huntsville, Alabama, some time ago. So in my professional career, in a very real sense, I have been raised and coached and mentored by John, along with a couple of generations of people at IBM. And so it is an honor for me tonight to introduce my boss, John Iwata, and our featured speaker. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Something tells me you're going to have a great annual evaluation this year. Really, thank you very much. And thank you to the Planck Center. Thank you, Keith and Bill, Carla, and the board. It's wonderful to share the evening with people I consider to be mentors of mine. I've considered myself to be more of a professional mentee than a mentor. I learn from everybody. I try to observe people and situations, and that's how I learn. And however, to the degree that I have been and I am a mentor, I would say that it's a tough time being a mentor today. We're living through such historic changes, and the Planck Center's report that came out today, I think a landmark report, simply underscores that reality. So if a mentor is a kind of guide to help you understand the unwritten rules of corporate culture, a guide to help you understand a profession and how to build a career, and as you've heard from some of my colleagues so eloquently, a guide to yourself who tells you with straight talk perhaps potential that you don't see or behaviors that could derail your career, and they help you see that too. But how do you guide people in a time of great change? There are the eternal truths, and they're still good. Critical thinking, clear writing, good work ethic, teamwork, and every year come up with one or two things nobody asks you to do. Still good. But how do you answer questions like, what skills will be most important in the future? I understand writing and editing, but what is big data? Is social media another tool, or is it something altogether different? Where in the world, literally, should I go to build my career? I don't know how to answer these questions.
but I think I, like all of you, we are fascinated by the phenomenon that is changing the world and business and society. And people will be studying about this 100 and 200 years from now. We're living through it today. So the best that we can do is to commit ourselves to trying to understand and to lead change. I, for one, believe our profession, I'm not alone in this, believe our profession is becoming something altogether different. And I do believe that in a few years from now, the tools and techniques that have served us well for most of our careers will look rather crude and primitive. And I think in the future, in addition to all the good things that we know how to do today, we were going to add to our responsibilities and our skill sets some new things. Now, we are going to be producers and broadcasters and developers and reach directly, not segments of populations, but individuals by the millions. And we'll really know them and be able to serve their needs and engage with them on that basis. I do believe that we will build and operate systems of engagement infused with data and informed by behavioral science. I do believe that we will be curators of corporate character. I think transparency is not to be feared, it's a good thing. And ultimately, it's going to compel our businesses and institutions and our leaders to be more authentic. And our jobs, and I think it's always been the case, will increasingly be helping our businesses to define themselves and what we believe and stand for, what makes us us, our distinct and unique character, and then the hard work every day of becoming truer, more authentic and genuine versions of ourselves. Let me close by saying that I've been privileged not only to be mentored by many, many people over the years, but to work for 3 CEOs of IBM. That's pretty remarkable because we've only had 9 in 101 years. And I've learned from all of them. And I've learned a lot about what to do during times of great change. And I'd like to close by sharing with you a few of their words of advice that I try to apply every day. For my current CEO, Ginny Rometty, who I think is going to be one of the greatest CEOs we've ever had. She shares a lesson she learned from her life and her career, and that's this: growth and comfort do not coexist. From Sam Palmisano, who just retired and led the company during very 10 tumultuous years, so many words of advice, but one, always go to the future, which if you think about it too long, it doesn't actually make sense. And from Lou Gerstner, who led the historic turnaround of our company, and there would be no IBM today without Lou Gerstner, he said, no matter how far you go, never stop learning. And I leave you with that. I thank you for this great recognition and honor, and good evening.
Yeah, following John, that's a lot of fun. Thank you, John. I was told to make my comments brief. Any of you who have been here before know that I wind the evening up, so I want to thank you all for being here. By the way, anybody who is here that has not been here before but has attended other public relations events, I want you to just take note of 3 years running the experience I'm having right now. If you've ever been to the PR Week Awards or any of those kinds of awards, there's actually silence in the room. There's actually, PR people has a reputation at these kind of events of being kind of rude, and there's not, because of what we're talking about tonight is so important. Now, as I said, I was asked to keep my comments brief, but any of you that know sort of what I've been through just in the last couple of days, living in New York and being without heat, and having my 92-year-old mother and my 85-year-old mother-in-law living with us. Now that I'm not that anxious to get back to New York right now, so hopefully some of you, if not all of you, have filed absentee ballots because you're going to be here for a little while. And also Sunday evening, when we lost our power, I missed the latest episode of Revenge, and I'm not in a good mood about that either. Today was a great day for the public relations profession. The Summit for Global Leadership has done great things for us, and I actually, ironically, have the chance now to thank my very first client from 23, 24 years ago, Rob Flaherty, for the role that he played in summing up the day today. And anybody that saw his artwork in there knows, and especially any of the professionals that know Rob, if you sit in a meeting with Rob, and I've been asking him to do this for years, he should save his doodles. Well, he didn't need to because it all came together today, so thank you for that, Rob. What we learned today is the high value of the function, and we also learned what its challenges are globally going forward, and we also know that we have big questions on where we want to go with the profession moving forward. This night is a great example of how far the profession has come. This night, for 3 years running in this city, has sold out this dinner because people in this industry recognize the importance of mentorship. And with leaders such as the ones that have been recognized here tonight, and I somewhat hesitate to do this, but we all have mentors. The Educator Award is named after my mentor, my good friend, Bruce Berger, who's had the vision for where we are today. Bruce Berger was actually the one that Betsy approached when she wanted to start the Planck Center. So I think we all a great debt of gratitude to Bruce for what he's done. For those young professionals, and students in the room, I can't urge you enough to think about who you've been around tonight, to think about these people. Someone like Ryan, who's just starting his career, Elizabeth Toth, who's contributed so much in the education of communications people. My good friend Nick ASHOOH, who has 3 children who are more accomplished than he is, and who is obviously clearly a world-class professional. Steve Harris, who has a level of humility that's hard to come by in the profession, but I will tell you that whether we did this year or 3 years ago, but in my time in this business, there are few people who have been recognized as a greater leader than you, Steve. I had the good fortune of serving on several, she's going to get embarrassed again, but anyway, so on several industry organizations with Margery KRAUS, and everything you heard tonight was true. And what you're hearing about these people tonight is their authenticity and their genuineness. I've been to Margery's home. Her house is unbelievable. And what's unbelievable about it is that it is generations of family all together. It's an old world existence in a very contemporary environment. And Margery has done an unbelievable job at building a world-class agency. And then it just happens whether you want to like it or not, John, that you've been recognized in our industry time and time again as being a tremendous leader, and all of your vision for the industry, the leadership, the pioneering, the mentoring you've done for others, and the teams that you've been able to put together both inside of IBM and then outside of places like the Arthur Page Society. But I got to tell you, as much as anything, I needed to be here tonight. And I had 5 separate flights canceled. 1 coming out of Newark, 2 coming out of LaGuardia, which just opened at 7 o'clock this morning. I couldn't get here. I got here because John Iwata brought me here. So again, I can't thank you enough for that, John. If that wasn't supposed to be public knowledge, I apologize, but it just meant too much to me. So I urge all the people in this room, and especially the young people, the students, to learn about these leaders, learn about the organizations they work for, know more about what IBM is doing in communications, know what ABCO's all about, know what Ketchum's all about, understand how they're teaching at the University of Alabama and the University of Maryland. Really understand these things. Now also I want to thank those people, I'm coming to the end, believe it or not. I want to thank those people that have been our sponsors. The pages in the program are not numbered, but it actually would be page 3. Without you, we wouldn't be where we are today in terms of the money we've raised and the scholarships that we're able to provide and the research that we'll be able to have done. Betsy had a vision for mentorship and leadership. One of my favorite stories about Betsy was being on this board is that Betsy had a vision that said, I think one of the members of the Board of Trustees for the Planck Center ought to be the reigning president of the PRSSA. So every year at our board meeting, we hear from the reigning president of the PRSSA, the U.S. The PRSSA, and in hearing that, we understand really what people are being taught today and what young professionals are thinking about. What organization has that? What insight she had? What vision she had? The University of Alabama has done a tremendous amount of things, and besides the fact that it provided both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree to our good friend Mark Harris, they actually have a football program too. I don't know if you even knew that. And by the way, this is just the kind of thing that makes you realize just how imperfect life can be. So Mark Harris is on the board and a tremendous contributor to the board of the Planck Center as a direct result of his good friend Ed Barbini and my good friend Ed Barbini, who's actually influenced John today to say, hey, let's, you and I help Bill get to Chicago. And Ed said to me, when I called that up, I said, I really think you ought to know more about the Planck Center. So I go into the whole description of the Planck Center, said, would you have any interest in ever sitting on the board? Because it would be great to have somebody from IBM. He said, yeah, but I went to Columbia. I was born in Staten Island. It doesn't make any sense. You need to meet my friend Mark Harris. Well, Mark has just been an absolute pleasure to work with. A lot of what went on here today was a direct result of what he's done, so thank you so much, Mark. There's a few more people and then we'll be done, promise. There's a number of people here tonight who are far more relaxed than they have been the last 2 years. And the reason for that is Lisa Gill. Lisa Gill organized this thing tonight, put it together, and has done a marvelous job. Lisa, I don't know where you are, but please stand up and be recognized. Oh, actually, she's way in the back there. The empty seats that are here tonight, a lot of them are because there are people that weren't able to get here from the East Coast, and I know my entire team, which is a table of 10, were not able to be here, but one of my colleagues, Jen Wilson, was very instrumental in putting today together, so I need to thank her. She's not here. And then, of course, Carla Gower, this leader of our group, the director of the center, has been just an incredible. Carla is one of those people you work with and for who always makes you feel good about the effort that you're putting in. I can't thank you enough for making that happen. I don't know how I would have gotten here without my friends from IBM, but there wasn't an option for me not to get here tonight to be with Ron Culp and Keith Burton. They make this happen. For whatever reason, they want me to be up here at the end of this night to kind of wind it down, but really, they've been the backbone of this. They're a pleasure to work with. We've made a great team over the years, and this event continues to be one of the most important events in the public relations industry, and it will only grow more as things like the Author Page Society continues to reinforce things like the Future Leaders Society, Future Leaders, and as more and more mentorship becomes recognized, as more reverse mentoring goes on in this profession, this organization, the Planck Center for Leadership and Public Relations, will grow more and more. Thank you for being here. We look forward to seeing you next year, and get home safe.